If I'm very honest with you, I am not mad at the current DEI shake-up. I actually welcome it. What's happening in the US, the political landscape, all of them things are really tough as a D&I professional to absorb and read every single day when people are bashing the profession. However, some people joined in on the DEI bandwagon through external influences. So that could have been George Floyd's murder, it could have been the Me Too movement. And so what you have is a profession divided. You have a profession where you've got people that have been doing this for years and years and years, understand it, but more so understand change management, transformation, business growth, strategy. And then you have another group that have lived experience. So maybe they are a gay white man, maybe they are black, maybe they have a neurodiverse condition, and they've been said, look, come and you've got a lot of passion. So come and do this role. And passion will only take you so far. And that's what we're seeing. And so if you've been asked to do this job because you're passionate or because you have lived experience, you won't, and you don't understand business, or you don't understand change management, or you don't understand strategy, you don't get the substance.
Hannah, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am fine. Thank you. Very excited to be here.
If I knew you was wearing that jacket, I would have changed the theme.
Why?
Of the set. It would have been perfect.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I love that. It's super cool.
Pop of colour with.
Yeah. I'm kind of bad with that. I feel like I need a wardrobe designer, someone to help me out. I'm just black, white. It's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I could see you.
I know.
Green and a red.
Green. I don't know if I can pull off green.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it takes, you know what though? Only certain people can pull off jackets like that. Okay. If I was wearing that, it would not work for me.
Well, you can try it on later if you really want
Imagine
to.
I'm like this. Hey, everyone. Yeah. But so good to meet you in person. We spoke online before.
Yeah,
it's nice to see you. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about your background and sort of the journey to where we are now.
Absolutely. So where do I start? I've 20 years in corporate. I started my career when I was 16 in the bank. So
oh, really?
16-year-old. Yeah.
Wow. Straight in.
Straight in. My first ever job was as a cashier at Halifax. And then at 17, I joined Barclays and I ended up staying there for nearly 18 years.
Wow.
I know. So a long time.
Take a deep breath when you said that.
Yeah. I started 17 as a cashier and I left as a global director, and so I'd worked my way up through the organisation. And I did a short stint in real estate as the group head of diversity, equity and inclusion, and now I'm in this really weird time, this transition in time where I'm just thinking about what it is I want to do next, and particularly with the DEI landscape as it is, for somebody like me who would class themselves as a D&I expert, transformation, culture. It's a really exciting time to think about actually what does the future look like for that type of work, and so that's what I'm doing at the moment. By
the way, I love first and foremost that you approach that last part with a positive lens, because you're right, it's a tough time. Let's not pretend it's not, but it's also an incredible opportunity to reimagine, right, and rethink everything as well. So it's great that you have.
I love that word, reimagine.
Yeah. Yeah, because everyone has such a negative outlook on. Of course, I understand that. Yeah. But I feel like it could be an opportunity. As well.
Yeah. So that's what they say about all the most successful business people are people that see the opportunities in times of hardship.
Yeah.
So that's
100%. I saw we lost 90% of our revenue during the pandemic because it was in-person events. Right. And I saw an entrepreneur talking about never waste a good crisis. And if you look at some of the best companies and most innovative businesses that are around today, they were born during the last recession. So whilst everyone else kind of hunkered down and was like, we're gonna hold down and let go of people, those companies hired and they innovated and they challenged the status quo and reimagined their business and just excelled through that. So you kind of have a look at it in two ways, right? I feel like for us it's always been seek discomfort. I think that is it. If you become friends with discomfort, my best friend's discomfort and failure. Because if you do that, you change what you just did, the lens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And then you start to think of how can we do it as opposed to I can't do that.
And I think that's what's probably the most exciting thing for me is actually, well, what is the possibilities? Because, and I'm sure we'll get into this, the work's not going to change. So we're not going to go back to saying, yeah, we want, all men on boards and we don't have, a diverse society that reflects in our business. We're not going to go back to that. But the world is changing, right? And so we have to pivot. And, we've got some leaders that have views and their views are having a huge impact on us.
Yeah.
And so now, the people like me who've been in the game for a long time, we're just thinking, firstly, we've seen this before many times, right? But then it's also about, okay, well,
have we seen it before? Is it a new lens and a new, is this just another brand of people trying to cancel?
Do you know what? I think in many different ways we've seen it, right? When we have any type of disruption, there'll always be a resistance. So if you think about when Black Lives Matter first came out, everyone said, well, all lives matter. When it was Me Too, then men were saying, well, we also get harassed. Like there's always been this kind of a reaction to something that we're trying to drive. And so I have to say, admittedly, the voices are louder this time. Like, they're actually in political parties. They're actually running
in legislation
and running economies. So that's probably the thing that feels different. And that's probably why there is this reaction to it. But disruption and reaction is a constant. So
so this isn't going to be the first time, and it won't be the last time.
No,
it ain't the first time.
It won't. And sadly, and I say this, with all the respect, it might take another black man being killed in public for the uproar to happen again, right? And it might take another woman who is harassed by officials. It might take something else, and that's sad.
It shouldn't. But you are telling the truth.
That's fact.
Like you saw everyone during the George Floyd all of a sudden flip, and I saw companies hiring chief diversity officers. Everyone's posting the black pictures. With like they're not even doing anything about it, but they're just on the bandwagon, Black Square on social media. I'm like, I know those companies. I'm like, I know you ain't doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and you're just jumping on the and then just as quickly
something else.
Right.
Yeah.
If they flip, they flip. Oh, but they just flip back though. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. True.
But and then you see the companies now that truly it's part of their culture, their values, that now actually doubling down even during this time. They're the real ones. Yeah. Like they're the ones that like even while the fire's hot, we're leaning in even further, and that's the message that they're sharing to their employees that this is not just some words on the wall.
Yeah.
We live in these even when. It's not going up with the trend.
No, as
well. So
and there's a balance though, because although yes, you're right, there are some organisations that are doubling down. There are a lot of organisations that have backtracked, and it's in that backtrack that you see who really meant it. To your point, who really meant the Black Square, who really meant the review of policies. That this is where you see it, because it's in times of challenge that you see people's actions, and if their actions are sincere. And so that's what we're seeing.
What are you hearing from your network? Because I'm interviewing your peers and CHROs every day, but unfortunately they can't share their opinions on the show. And we know why, right? They've got jobs, and they like, as much as they would love to speak out, unfortunately in many cases they can't, because it means they probably have to walk away. So what are you hearing from within your network right now?
So I think there's a number of different things I'm hearing. I'm hearing that the work still stays the same, but the words will change.
Give me an example.
That a lot. So, there's a number of organizations that we've seen, JP Morgan as an example, they have changed DEI to DOI. Diversity, opportunity, and inclusion, as opposed to DEI, diversity,
equity, that one.
And inclusion.
Interesting.
That's an example. It's in the public domain, so I can talk about that. But there are a number of organisations who have moved DEI under different guises or called it something
Culture and
different.
inclusion is the main one I'm seeing.
Talent and inclusion, engagement, colleague experience. We're seeing it all.
But the work's the same. Is that what you're saying?
The work is absolutely the same, and I feel like a lot of us DEI leaders and HR professionals are now walking thesauruses. We're like, how can you say the same thing with a different word? Like,
and we've changed it a lot. Even since I've been doing this for 20 years, it's like it's like ID&E, DE&I, diversity. There's a lot of different versions of that.
But when you strip it back, the work still remains. It is about ensuring that everybody feels like they can thrive in the workplace. They feel like they can, have equal opportunities to progress in their careers. They feel like they want policies that reflect, who they are and their lifestyle. That stuff stays the same. The world is changing so much that organizations almost don't have a choice. If you don't change with the world, even from a generational perspective, then actually you lose your client base. You can't speak to them, you don't understand them, and so therefore then you start to hit the bottom line. And so that's ultimately how I talk about DEI, is that it's a commercial value that you almost can't afford to miss.
Because that's going to ripple down all the way to your customer.
Absolutely.
And then vice versa, it's going to also, for in terms of how you attract and retain talent, they're just not gonna. And then this, I know I'm not saying everyone, but I do feel like this generation more than our generation, it is a consideration. And it's something that I get asked in interviews that in the past wasn't even a question. Right, and they will look up your company. And they'll make sure, right? So this is no longer this is table stakes. This is no longer a nice to have. It's also the right thing to do, and it's great business, to your point, more than anything else. As well. Do you feel like what's the impact that this has had on the credibility of the function?
Great question.
Because it's been, from the external view in the media, it's been absolutely Do you know
what? I think if I'm very honest with you, I am not mad at the current DEI shake-up. I actually welcome it. Don't get me wrong, what's happening in the US, the political landscape, all of them things are really tough as a D&I professional to absorb and read every single day when people are bashing the profession. However, some people joined in on the DEI bandwagon through external influences. So that could have been George Floyd's murder, it could have been the Me Too movement, and also organizations didn't hire, they didn't have these jobs. So what they did is they found the black person that had the loudest voice and said, would you like to come and work in DEI? And so what you have is a profession divided. You have a profession where you've got people that have been doing this for years and years and years, understand it, but more so understand change management, transformation, business growth, strategy. And then you have another group that have lived experience. So maybe they are a gay white man, maybe they are black, maybe they have a neurodiverse condition, and they've been said, look, come and you've got a lot of passion, so come and do this role. And passion will only take you so far. And that's what we're seeing. And so if you've been asked to do this job because you're passionate or because you have lived experience, you won't, and you don't understand business, or you don't understand change management, or you don't understand strategy, then actually that's where you don't get the substance, and so therefore leaders then look and think, see, waste of money, that we're not getting the results. We've got someone in there that we're not getting the results. That's because actually you haven't given them the tools and the resources to do the job well. And the tools and resources isn't diversity training, it's change management. How do you manage change? How do you manage transformation? And then you apply the DEI lens to it. That's how I see it.
I completely agree with you, and that's something I say about same for HR. People are, I got into HR because I love people. You're in the wrong space. Because HR is not like being okay, it's part of it. Of course you need to have passion for it, but that's not gonna make you any world-class HR professional I speak to. It's exactly the skills that you described. Business, exactly, transformation, growth. Change. Not I really enjoy people. Like HR maybe 20 years ago, maybe, but not now. No. As well. So so where does that land us then? Where do we go from here?
So this is, that, to my point around where I'm at in this transition season in my life, it's thinking about, well, how do we make sure that businesses are ready for the future? Like if we take AI as an example, there's so much now about, artificial intelligence, how to learn the skills, learn the coding, learn how to, the prompts and all of them things, because they know that they are skills of the future. I see the same with DEI. You have to think about how do we prepare organizations for the diversity of the communities to come. In the US, I think it's 2030 or 2050, one of them that, the white race will be a minority in the US.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so think about that. So if you're an organization, if you're a business now that is a business to customer, then actually you are going to have to think about your customers in a very different way. Their needs, their experiences, their expectations will be different. And so that's where I think I can, add real value. And that's where I think DEI professionals can add the real value. It's really understanding where the future of your business is going, what them clients of the future will look like, sound like, where they will come from, what their abilities will be, and then make sure that we are, as a business, we're ready for that. In any way.
But also not just from a product perspective, but also that your employees represent that culture as well, right? That they can relate. And then and also, like, I've seen many companies now, and a lot of the best DI leaders I speak to, they're part of the product conversations, and they're working with a product team to create new innovative products that they can serve to those communities. And I spoke to a food, probably shouldn't mention the name, but a very large company that make food and drink that you all know of, and their DEI team helped them create a couple of new products, and actually crisps in this sense, certain flavors that created like a couple 100 million in revenue because it's this new sort of flavors that they came out with that represented these different countries and communities that came from their infinity groups internally, and they have a product conversation. Like, that incredible stuff. So
key. And that's something that I did when I was at Barclays, is the same thing. It's thinking, well, actually, how do we leverage the people inside? They are already our clients and our customers. And we connected them with our product team. And it was so fascinating to hear actually how, our accounts that we open and the different religions and how that has an impact on interest and all these different things that usually organizations pay thousands and thousands, billions, to really understand their clients, when actually your clients are inside, and that's the beauty of DEI, is that sometimes people think of DEI in one dimension. They think of it as representation. It's all about just making sure that people at the senior levels look like you, but that's not even a fraction of what it could be. And that's what's exciting to me, is to start unlocking what it really could be. What could inclusion be? What could engagement be? What could diversity and equity be of the future? And so that's the stuff that really interests me.
What message do you give to the DI leaders right now, that yes, the work may not have changed, but they have less budget, they have less resources? This is a fact. I'm speaking to leaders every day right now, so that is directly going to impact them.
It is. It's impacting us all, right? Like, I'm in several WhatsApp groups. Geez, like, how many?
I can only imagine the WhatsApp groups.
I can only imagine how many WhatsApp groups you can be in, but and people are feeling it. It feels like a really tough time. It feels like it's really hard. It feels like the profession is not being taken seriously, and so a lot of people are thinking about, is this for them? And they're going into different parts of HR. And I'm not mad at that either, because we need DEI everywhere. So if you've been a D&I leader and now you're a talent acquisition leader, then actually you're going to take your D&I, your learnings and your experience into talent acquisition. I think that's great that we can do that. And for the ones that actually are committed to the cause, I would say, look, we just got to stand our ground. If you are convinced, if you know that you're valued, that you have value that you bring to the organization, that you can make that business better, then use your voice, advocate for yourself, bring the data, bring the facts. It might take a bit of repositioning, language evolves. Language has changed so much. I think we were talking about how one day it was personnel.
Personnel relations days.
Yeah, I don't know about them days. But, but then there's HR.
Now it's people.
And now it's people, right? And training is now learning and development. So a mentor told me, Hannah, don't get hung up on the words. If D&I as a language moves, that doesn't matter. Your work stays the same, whatever it's called.
Because they're not really attacking the work. No. They're attacking the name.
There's something about, and you know what, if I'm very honest with you, I believe that it's not even all of the words, it's just the diversity.
No, it is just that word. Hence why everyone's like culture and inclusion, etc.
Exactly.
It's that specific triggering people.
It's really triggering.
They really got hold of that in the media and the news. And when I speak to people outside of the space and friends, they don't even know what it means. They're like getting swayed by the media, and I'm like, so what is it you're actually upset about? Or what? And they're like, they don't even know. They can't even articulate it to me. They're just been convinced that that's the thing. And I'm like, you don't even know. You're making a decision based on the media, to be able to do that. And when you share some storytelling, I think is one of the most powerful ways, obviously, to do that. They're like, oh, okay. I'm like, is that what that is? That really DEI? I'm like, is that what that means? I'm like, yeah. Or I've even described some of the products that they use and how some of the physical products that they use every day and their experience. I'm like, that's because of X, Y, and Z. They're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, these are things that like are real.
And that's the challenge. If you, sadly I see it a lot, particularly in the UK, when we champion things that we don't understand. You know, we will protest for things that we don't really know why we're protesting.
Because it's the popular thing, maybe.
Right. We'll vote for things that we don't even really understand the ramifications of these things, right? But if you actually strip back what we're saying, DEI is all about just making sure that everybody gets the opportunity, whether they take it, whether they are great at it or not great at it. That's all still based on fairness. But today, not everyone gets the opportunity. And so that's why you have DEI people, that's why you have inclusion, to kind of take away the barriers that are in the workplace that we know. You know, they're there, the data says it.
I think early on when I first came when I first came across DEI, I thought that doesn't apply to me.
Okay.
Because I'm a white male.
Yeah.
Like, that's my knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Right, because that's not for me, that's for everyone else that isn't. Yeah. That doesn't have a voice. And I think that's how some people see it. They're like, oh, that's for everyone else. And therefore I'm losing out. Because why is everyone else getting these opportunities? And so then it's like, I feel excluded from that.
Because can I just challenge you on that? Because that also suggests that DEI is just about race.
No, that's what I mean. I'm saying it was a misconception.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm saying I that was my knee-jerk reaction to it. This is like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But as I obviously now it's my job to have these conversations. I'm like, oh wow. But sometimes that is also the fault of the organizations and companies about how they position it.
Absolutely.
Because it actually, in a way that they communicate, and I've seen some of the messaging from other companies, I'm like, oh, that's actually, you do realize it's kind of ironic that your language is exclusive, is not inclusive.
Yeah.
You do realize like you're alienating people.
That's my biggest challenge with some of the organizations that have moved DEI into talent functions, because then that is a suggestion that DEI is only about talent.
That's when people get really upset. Yeah.
Because actually then it's like, well, DEI is only about making sure that we have the right talent in the business. But what about your clients? What about the communities you serve? What about your CSR? What about your ESG? Like, DEI is all encompassing. But when you have these businesses that move DEI into smaller functions within HR, you realize that actually they're not seeing DEI in its entirety. And then it comes down to representation. That's it. And that's half of the story.
When your friends and family ask you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that question?
Yeah, my daughter asks me that all the time. Like, what do you do? So I suppose I say that I go into organizations to help them build a culture where everybody feels like they can thrive. Like, that's ultimately, the big picture is that you want to work there. You want to feel like you can grow there. You want to feel like your voice is heard. And so you have people like me that can support the senior leadership team to get that right. And so that's what I say, and all the bells and whistles is that you get to do loads of speaking engagements and all of that. But ultimately, particularly for people like me who are in-house that work in large corporate organizations, it's about making sure that they've got a culture that everyone wants to be a part of and that everyone can follow. And that's why I see DEI in the future moving very much into cultural transformation and rather than the people.
So maybe this current scenario that we're in is a catalyst for pushing us towards that quicker.
Absolutely.
So you were saying, but I'm saying, I'm like, so you came at the first part of this conversation, you had a positive lens, which is great.
Yeah.
So maybe sometimes in the biggest crisis creates the opportunity to push you in a direction that perhaps you maybe didn't know you were going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I agree with you on that, because also when you talk about culture, how do you create an inclusive culture that goes beyond your team?
Yeah.
Where DEI is no longer a function.
Yeah.
And is the role of everyone.
Yeah.
And every leader in the organization, because that's when it really has impact.
Yeah.
Not when you're having to make sure everyone goes through some compliance training every year.
Exactly that. And when you think about culture, a lot of people think about their values or the purpose of the business, or the vision of the business. Inclusion should absolutely be woven into that. It can't almost be a separate thing. You've got these values about respect and stewardship and all these other things that you've got. But then there's no inclusion lens on that. So is everyone getting respected in your business, right? Does everyone feel like they can be heard? And so that's where I see the connection between organizational design, organizational effectiveness, culture and inclusion, and the current DEI landscape. And so that's what is really exciting. And I recently done a course at Henley Business School specifically on change management and organizational design, because I think that's really where, you know, professionals like me that really want to stay at that senior level need to be playing, need to be really thinking about, you know, an organization wants to be profitable, but no organization doesn't exist without its people. You know,
there's so many similarities to what you're saying to the evolution of the HR function and leader themselves.
True.
Everything you're saying, because HR early on used to be categorized and seen as, you know, the fluffy, the admin, payroll, right? And then now it's like the opposite: strategic, culture change, transformation, you know, business partner. Not even business partner. Like, I don't even like the word HR business partner, because like, you don't have market business partner. Like, well, we have to justify that we're a business partner and put it in there. No, they're just a partner. Like, they're strategic, right? I feel like I feel like it's going through the same similar like transformation.
I don't know if you're seeing it. I'd love to hear, because I know you speak to a lot of HR leaders, but a lot of people leaders, their titles are changing to people and culture.
I mean, they're also going through a similar, like, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do for our company, everyone, because it's called HR leaders. I'm trying, like,
I can see an eye there.
No, we've been thinking, I'm like, people leaders, I don't know, like, but it's true, like, they want to move away from the stigma of, you know, human resource. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where people think that's cool or okay or makes any sense whatsoever. I don't want to be called a human resource.
No.
Leave a comment in the chat if you want to be called human. So people, culture, that's kind of and even transformation.
Yeah.
You know, is coming into it, and I think the role of HR is going to continue to evolve, right?
I agree.
To the point where we're going to have, like, with AI, it's also, we don't even know what it's going to look like right now, but you're going to have, like, the same way we focus on the financial P&L, we'll have like a people and culture P&L.
Yeah.
But it'll be side by side, right?
I agree.
And I'd see, like, how do we create that people and culture P&L in an organization?
I think we need to, because titles are so easy to change, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of trying to understand and explore. If you are a people and culture leader, because culture on its own is huge. It's colleague listening, it's engagement, it's experience, it's all these things. And then people on its own is huge. And so, you know, you've got a lot of kind of senior HR professionals, CPOs that have been doing the HR space for years. So this people transition feels easy to them, but haven't really been doing the culture piece.
Well, it's because they've basically changed that, but we have to, in order for that to actually change, we have to fundamentally change the way of work, the way in which you work. And that's like, you're basically blowing everything up. You're talking about every hierarchies, policies, processes, the way we actually work, whether it's hybrid, basically a lot of companies are trying to, like, do both.
This is my point.
You don't work.
No.
Because you're basically trying to say one thing, but you're rewarding people another way. And you're trying to do one thing, but the way people work are rewarded or recognized, and also how we track, you know, what does success look like, right? In this new. So I think that's the problem. Like, there's like almost like a new business operating model transformation and a culture operating model that needs to kind of
agreed.
Start from, and it's hard.
It's
easy to say it, but to do it at scale and moving towards being skills based organization, being agile, being able, and, you know, that's removing years of, like, you know, most leaders who went through in our generation, like, that's a big change.
It's huge.
To become talent exporters rather than talent hoarders on my team. That's like you know, or the fact that your pay is directly linked to not your skills, but, you know, your time in the business or your job title. All of that needs to be fundamentally rethinked. And I think that's the change. That's the challenge.
Yeah, it does. But then if you have leaders, because even within HR, it is about your C-suite. It is about your executive team. It's about your CEO. If they believe that their people can transform their business, then they'll invest the time. I've met some amazing leaders that really, really focus on their people, and they see the results. The results trickle down to their bottom line. It trickles down to the P&L. It trickles down to their clients. It's when you get organizations that are trying to do both and want to just merge everything and not giving the time and the thought, is where actually you see the friction. And a lot of people would ask or argue whether DEI should even sit in people. You know, like I do have some colleagues and peers who don't report into a CPO, who report directly into a CEO.
Yeah, I mean, the most successful ones I know of report into the CEO.
Exactly, and that's where you can really make sure that you're doing this from a strategic business lens, and so it's fundamental to kind of.
And what coincidentally, those are the ones that are still going right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
That are not pulling back.
Yeah.
The ones that were actually in lockstep with the CEO are actually speaking out.
Yeah.
You know, about it and being like, you know, so I think that's the difference. And then to your point though, the reason that works is it's aligned with the business strategy.
Exactly that.
Right?
Exactly that.
And it's directly linked to revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're never going to
Your shareholders and investors are involved in those conversations too. And they want to make sure. Like that's a completely different conversation to what you described earlier, where people are coming in to tick a box because you are, like you said, a black female leader over here, or you fit this box over here that we want. You can come and now hopefully you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
With no support, no budget, no training. Good luck. See ya.
You could never say, "Oh yeah, because of budgets, we're going to cut the finance team."
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like,
or even HR, because you need to hire, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you can cut back on hiring, but you can never completely.
Whereas in D&I, it feels very disposable. It feels like, oh, we haven't got budget this time, we'll cut D&I. Oh, there's a bit of turbulence externally, we'll cut D&I. Like, and that's where you see that actually DEI is not woven into the business, because you shouldn't be able to.
They were like, hey, we generated like 200 million off of the like a cool example. We did an event at L'Oreal.
Okay.
And their chief technology or R&D officer innovation officer, I think it was, shared some of their latest products that he'd worked with specifically with the DEI team on. And they had and it added like 2 billion revenue. And it was like, one of them was like makeup applicators that were self-leveling for people with like cerebral palsy and stuff. So it's like, as you basically, it doesn't move, it like self-levels, so you could do your makeup, right? And they had like lipstick applicators, all sorts of different things, right? Loads of different products. And like, we generate like 2 billion, right? From working with the DEI team and our communities that we serve and our customers and internally our employees. This is a whole, and they're like pivoting to beauty tech company now.
Wow.
When did you think L'Oreal would be a technology company?
Absolutely not. But you know what?
Right. It's not going to be completely, but I mean, it's just like they've got a whole new.
Yeah. And you know what? That's such an important message, what you just said there, right? What happens in DEI that I don't think we do well is we don't measure. So we can't say we've generated this for your business. We don't get the data or the metrics. We don't, because we're so fussed about representation. And don't get me wrong, that is really important. But if you can say to a business, we have generated this amount of revenue for your business, you're not going anywhere.
No.
You know. But that's the challenge with DEI, is that we're still in a space where it's a good thing to do. Let's go out to the community. Let's go to the schools. All really important stuff. But if you can actually start to prove that what you are doing is having a business impact, then that is where you know the business sees the value. Now, I know a lot of people will be angry at saying that, because they believe that DEI is a good thing to do, and you shouldn't have to connect it to a metrics. You have to we should all.
It's the one way of looking at it, because if you do that, you'll have more for that, more money, more budget, more opportunity to do all the things that you're doing, right? Like, they will always talks about like HR is not HR is the business, because it's like you in order to do all of that, you have to serve your customer, right? Like, it's the customer and then working backwards, right? So people start with, don't start with HR, start with your customer first, right? And it's the same thing, like start with that first, and then you'll get all the budget you want. I tell you, those people I'm describing right now, they ain't struggling. Yeah, exactly. For investment. Yeah. No, it's true. in the DEI team, right? And DEI is also not even a team, it's the business. Yes. It's the role of everyone, not the role of their function. No. And it's very clear. And when Celeste Warren, over who we did an event with, always blows my mind, because like when we did the event at their HQ, like every single executive turned up to that event. Yeah. And that is the unlock. When you can, I was like, we did an event, she was hosting, and every C-suite member came along to the event and spoke. And I was like, wow. Yeah. It's like, okay, this isn't a you thing. This is a we thing. You know then that she's invested the time in them leaders. Yeah. To make sure that they understand, to make sure that they're on board, that they're bought in. Yeah. That takes time. But that time that you invest in your leaders will bear. Yeah. We had the CEO talk from the business end. We had the CMO do a panel together for the marketing lens, the sales team, operations team, finance team, and it was like this.
Amazing.
And I was just like, that's how you do it. This is how you do it. And all of the CHROs in the room were like, I wish I had that relationship. And one of the things Celeste shared, like, you can, but you used to just go and wait, go and approach your peers, set up meetings, have conversations, reach out. They ain't gonna come to you. So they may be if they're great. Hopefully they do, but if they don't, she made those, and it took time.
Yeah, exactly.
To build the trust and the relationships. You're not always going to agree.
Yeah.
As well, right? So
and even with inclusion, there's an added layer that it's quite difficult to talk about DEI. You know, like, it's very difficult to talk about something that maybe you don't have that lived experience from. So if you imagine all the C-suite leaders, they are probably quite vulnerable about DEI, right? So you have to invest in the relationship, but also your influencing skills, your people skills are going to come through, because if you want to talk to a leader about, you know, the LGBTQ community or about race or about neurodiversity, if it's not part of their lived experience, if it's not part of their life, their first hand will be nerves, because I don't know if I can
say the wrong thing,
all of these. So that's how, as a leader, a D&I leader, you have to have the skill to be able to help them on the journey.
Yeah.
And that takes time, as you said.
Even I've had that situation. I have these conversations every day, and like when George Floyd happened and everyone was doing all their posts, I didn't post. And because I was like, oh, what if I say something wrong or thing? And I remember Tasha pulling me up and being like, I'm disappointed in you. I was like, what? And she's like, you do posts every day, you're an influencer, you have a big following, and you didn't say anything. And I was like, I just don't know what to say. Like, and if I say something, what if I say something wrong? She's like, well, that's the problem we have.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, okay, cool. So even me, someone who's having a conversation every day, I was like, what if I say something wrong, or people like, who are you to talk? Like, we don't want to hear from you. So, but a lot of time we need those people to speak up.
Yeah. And that's the reality. You know, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important, that people see that everybody deals with this. It's not only, you know, the people that are marginalized. It's actually everyone has a challenge with speaking about it. It's just, do it. You have to. We need your voices. We can't just, just all be speaking about our own lived experience, because then it's just, you're talking to somebody who already gets it. It's the people that are in leadership positions. It's white men, it's white women, it's people that are straight talking about, you know, LGBT. It's all of us really trying to champion that conversation. That's important.
It's tough. It's not, and again, it is like, you're not always going to get it right.
No, you're not.
You also have to give yourself a bit of grace for that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the stuff I was worried about. Like, if I've put stuff out there and got heat.
Have you?
Yeah, from DEI leaders.
Okay.
I obviously can't say who they are, but I've had like very senior leaders reach out to me and like, I disagree with X, Y, and Z, and we had a conversation about it. Some of them not. Actually, they just wanted to blast me on LinkedIn. But like, I was like, I don't regret it, because otherwise, to your point, otherwise I'll never know.
Exactly.
You know, and they didn't deal with it in a great way, to be quite honest, as well. It's kind of ironic, given that that's their role, to give some safe space, and I'm getting heat for it. Like, or even like, I had someone recently message me. You know, we do events every week, right? And one of the things that I speak about with Shane, my co-founder, and the team, is like, we want to also be diverse in our speakers that come, because we want diversity of perspectives and views. And we had like 16 panels across this big AI HR summit, and one of the 16 panels had a couple of white guys and a couple of white women. I got so much heat, like, but the rest of the entire the other 15 sessions were super diverse, right? And I got so much heat for that. Really? Like DMs, messages, emails, and I was like, did you look at the entire? Some of them even apologized. They're like, oh, I didn't see that, I just saw that one post of that one panel on LinkedIn. So I was like, so before checking, your first reaction was just to attack me. And I was like, did you see the entire program? They literally, I'm so sorry, Chris. Like, I was like, you got to kind of like look into it for a second.
People only have very short attention spans, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going through a feed, all you're responding to is what's on your feed.
The knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, it's just that knee-jerk reaction. And usually what happens is people then take a pause and they apologize, like you say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I suppose when you are going through your feed and you see somewhere like HR leaders, you are going to expect to see that. So I suppose it's a lesson for every business to think about.
It's a lesson for me and the team. I was like, guys, even though we know there's a whole 99% of the program is like that, no one's going to see that. They're just going to see that one thing. But also, to your point, and I said that to the team, we're not just going to put people on it just because.
No, you can't. It shouldn't be.
You see what I mean? I see other companies doing it where they just, let me just fill the gap and just find anyone of color to put on there. That's not the right approach either.
Because that's not what DEI is. DEI isn't just about putting people there because they are black or because they are of a different dimension.
But those people that are mentioned complaining would prefer that though.
Yeah.
So it's like, come on, like I need to, at some point I need to make sure like it's about the actually having the right people on there that are deserving of that. And I do whatever I can and we can to shine. The whole point I'm doing this interview right now, and the show that Natasha does is as well, is we grew up in a multicultural, we both grew up in a multicultural background, right?
I'm from South.
Exactly. Like there's like, people don't believe this when I say this, like there's just 2 white kids in my class. I was one.
Oh really?
Of the 2, and it was black and Indian. And it's East London, where I grew up. I was a minority. Which people won't believe in London, but trust me. And then after I lived in Woolwich, I was even more of a minority. and but people, you tell people that, they're like, yeah, but you're from London. What are you talking about? And that's super multicultural. So when I went into the business world in London Bridge, like my first corporate job, and I walked into a massive sales floor, and there was not a single person of color on the floor, I was like, what?
Where are we?
It's like, literally. I was like, where am I? And I remember being like, saying it to my manager. He thought I was joking. I was like, we only hire white men? Like, there was one female on the floor, Annie, Jamaican woman.
Okay.
And she had a tough time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Being on the floor with 300 white salesmen, I was like, wow. Like, and then I brought my friend in, Colin, who was the first like actually black employee, which is crazy because the company's been around for like 10 years as well. It's just like, it was a lot. And also I was expected to sound and look like everyone else, even though I grew up in East London. They're like, you need to read the Financial Times, and you need to talk a certain way. And I'm like, actually, there was an elocution coach.
No,
this is real stuff.
No way.
I was about to say his name, but I shouldn't say his name. We had a person who basically, his job, part of sales training, was to make you sound a certain way so you sound more well-spoken, because then of course then more people will buy from you. But to your point, the people I'm selling to are people that represent the cultures and backgrounds that I grew up in, and they don't want everyone to be a posh white guy selling them products.
And that's the biggest thing. From a social mobility perspective, accent bias is one of the biggest challenges, because apparently if you don't sound a certain way, you can't deal with your clients. You know? And there's loads of research out there that says that you're 17% more likely to be put in a back office if you've got an accent.
Yeah, that was me. And it was this is my posh voice at this point. Back then, 20 years ago, it was a little bit more. It was a bit more rough than it is now. But I was like, wait a minute. So you don't want me to be any part of what I'm bringing to the table? And that was hard to take in. And I was like, and that's from a white male perspective. So when I told you about my friend Colin, who came in, imagine from his perspective. So you want to completely strip everything of who I am as a black male and just water that down and become this construct.
Sadly, that is a reality that still exists today.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we do the work, right? To make sure that organizations recognize that is what people walk into. If you are a black woman, walking into a corporate office with your braids, I would not, 10 years ago, I would never do that. I would never go to the interview with my braids 10 years ago.
Really?
Absolutely not. I
remember people,
straight hair.
I think Tasha, you listening right now? I remember you telling me about like people always making comments about your hair.
Yeah.
Or even wanting to touch, you literally, or touching your hair, and like, my wife's black, by the way, everyone listening who don't know that, it's just like context. And I'm being like, what? Yeah. But then the same thing for Colin, when he came in and he had his cornrows, they were like, oh, like touching his head. Yeah. Like they're the things that people probably they don't even think is wrong.
And you know what? I always try to apply grace. Right, like
you can tell, because most people just ignorance.
It's ignorance. It is in most.
No one's intention. I mean, not everyone, but not everyone's intentionally trying to
No, and that's why the education in the workplace is so important. That's why this work will never go away, Chris. This work will never go away, because we will face these things every single day. And so if you don't have people that are in the ears of leaders telling them, look, actually, if we want to be more inclusive, then we need to support our leaders and our managers and our people to understand the nuances of identity.
Yeah.
Then you're always going to get that. And, you know, I now walk into businesses very comfortably with my hair however I want. I speak the way I speak. But that's probably because of my seniority, right? Like it comes
with experience. That's true. Because I was always like, like now it's weird. The more experience I've got, the less I care about what the hell anyone thinks. Like before I used to be clean shaven, suit, tie, every day, like, you know, thinking I had to talk a certain way. And now I'm like, I'll do what I want, where I want. So, and what I realized by that is like, by me doing that, it also allows my team and my employees to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I'm not like trying to, no, I don't need clones.
No.
I need you to be you. And if that means you wearing whatever, that's fine. If we go to meetings, obviously we'll dress up a little bit more, but in the comfort of our office, who you showing up for?
Yeah. And that's why my visibility is so important to me. You know, I've built my platform on LinkedIn over the last maybe 6 years.
Yeah.
And when I speak to people and when they tell me about the impact that I have, it's because they don't normally see Black women in senior positions that talk freely, talk about their religion, talk about their experiences in a leadership position. And it's so important because you give license for others. You know, you tell them that it's okay. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to wear your braids. It's okay to, you know, have a bit of an accent. I always say, and it was a mentor that said this to me, just be yourself with skill though. Right, so you be
like
yourself,
that.
Right?
Be yourself, but you got the skills as well.
Yeah, with the skill, you walk into rooms, right, as yourself, but the refined version of yourself, the elevated version of yourself, so that you can command the respect that you are due. You don't have to become like everyone else or try to, you know, be somebody else because you're trying to fit in.
Yeah.
That's the job. That's my job, to kind of help the environment, help the culture of the business realize that we want all types of identities.
I love that. I remember there was a moment for me when I realized that I hit at a certain point in my career where I didn't have to do that anymore. And in the sales context, it was because I was generating millions of pounds for the business. Yeah. So I obviously it was a bit easier. But I just remember being like, oh, I don't, that's no longer required of me. And even if it was, I just don't care anymore. And if that means that I can't work here, then whatever. But that's a privilege. Yeah, so I want to be clear on that. And I know I'm very lucky that I reached a position to do that as well. So I want to be clear on that bit as well. But
going back to your point on generation, I think the Gen Zs have more of that. They've got more of this. I am who I am.
Oh, they're not having it.
Yeah.
They don't care.
No.
I mean, in a good way. I mean, they're like, I'm not willing to sacrifice who I am for a job.
Yeah. And so again, what does that mean to businesses? That means that actually for businesses, they have to be adaptable. They have to be agile because they don't want to lose top talent because they don't allow trainers.
Or like authentic and relatable.
Yeah.
Like just like enough of like this whole, no one cares about your Glassdoor. Like this, like, do you know what I mean? Like the people, they're still like, oh, Glassdoor. Like, how about you just post an authentic conversation with some of your team on LinkedIn when they're being vulnerable?
Yeah.
Like, how about that?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, and you don't have all the answers and it isn't all roses in your company and everything's perfect because the reality is when people join, they'll find out anyway. Yeah. You can paint the perfect picture you want online, but when people come and they join, they're going to be like, all right, I'm just going to leave just as fast.
And I think that's absolutely accurate because maybe 15 years ago, if you started on day one and it wasn't, and they sold you a dream and it wasn't what
you
they said it
stayed there,
you'd stay.
Yeah, but now
they're like, sorry, probation's over.
They're calling their own probation. Right. Yeah, but there also wasn't the social media.
True.
So you couldn't find out.
Yeah.
So now there's the thing called social media, if you haven't heard of it, and the internet, where people and employees are happy to put a TikTok up of their experience. Yeah. Or so you can very quickly look up companies and find out everything now.
Exactly.
That wasn't a thing. Yeah. I had no idea I had a website link. Yeah. To the company that I was working for.
And that's what I think we need to just be conscious of when we're regressing on DEI, because your future talent, your future employees, they are going to look you up. And if there's headlines that this company regressed on DEI, that's going to make them make decisions that might not favor you. And so you have to think about actually the future of the workforce from a generational perspective. It's so important.
Yeah. I could talk to you forever.
I know.
I just realized like I actually have to go, but I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm excited for you for what's next for you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And that you're at a point where you can do that and explore it. And where can people connect with you if they want to reach out? And then
obviously connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm all about inclusion, transformation, culture, and just LinkedIn's probably my main place. And then also, HannahAwonuga.com is where you can get in contact with me if you'd love me to come and do any work with you.
Got the whole website name and everything, yeah? Listen, I wish for everyone listening, as always, wherever you're watching, listening right now, all those links will be in the description. So make sure you go connect with Hannah. Such a pleasure. Awesome. I look forward to doing it again soon.
Really awesome. Thanks so much.